Great to see you here, and thank you for coming. We are going to spend half an hour talking about how assistive technology can integrate into the universal design agenda, and how students can really have been leading the way already over the last 5 years in terms of how they used technology to enable themselves to become independent and competent learners. I'm going to give you a bit of background information, and we can turn on the next slide. Okay, my name is Hyland. I am the co-founder and excuse me now, I'm just going to take my badge off because my badge is interfering with the microphone. There we go. I wonder what was going on. Well, I was rustling around. It was me. My name is Hyland, and I'm the co-founder and Campaigns and Authorities Director for Diversity and Ability. I come from a student representation background. My previous role was the NUS Disabled Student Officer, responsible for campaigning for disabled students across the UK. This is my wonderful colleague, Jamie Crabb. Jamie is the head of training and innovations at DNA, and he's going to be the one leading the journey over the next 20 minutes or so. Just before I hand over to Jamie, I wanted to give you a little bit of background on DNA. So DNA is a social enterprise that was created by disabled students because they recognise there's a need for peer-led support when it came to enabling technology. We've been going about 6 years now, and we've got a team of about 50 people up and down England and a bit of Wales. We are yet to cross waters to come into Ireland, but now I've been to Ireland, I'm quite tempted to move here. It's lovely, and you got Guinness and everyone's happy. I love it, I'm shocked. We're expanding, it's all good. But just to touch on some key points that kind of really integrate what Jamie's been talking about. In Katie Novak's speech yesterday, she talked about the need for universal design to understand the way students think and interact with the content of the course. What we're saying is, on top of that, there needs to be a space where students themselves think about the way they think and think about how their diversity lends itself to reaching their potential. We believe that diversity and I guess thinking differently doesn't have to be negative when we understand it and we can build strategies around it, and we're accessing an education that is accessible, and universal design makes content even more accessible. Diversity can be a really good thing. I'm going to hand over to Jamie.
I'll just talk very briefly about my background. So I actually started off in community education and then actually went into academia. So I was a lecturer. Then I went into disability services and was a disability coordinator, and I also trained as a dyslexia specialist. And more recently, I've joined DNA, and I'm working in training innovations there, and also training to be a psychotherapist. So I'm bringing all of that really to today, and you'll see how that all integrates, because you know, a lot of what we're talking about is integration, and that was a theme that was kind of put forward this morning about integration. How do students integrate strategies and technology into what they're doing? So that's a real important theme. But I want to start, first of all, by talking about this word metacognition. It's a word that's generally bounded around a lot, but I'm wondering whether it's made really clear to students about what it is, what metacognition is. What does it mean to you? Do you know what metacognition is, and is it something that you explore actively with students? I'm wondering, what is metacognition? There's some help behind you. So tell me, what's your understanding, and how do you make it explicit to students in what you're doing? I'm wondering. Anyone? Yeah? Yeah, absolutely. Thinking about thinking, and also in terms of students, thinking about strategies as well. And I was having actually a debate on one of the JISC mails that I'm part of yesterday, actually, around learning and thinking styles. There was an article that came out in The Guardian around thinking styles and discrediting learning styles. And I thought it was a really interesting discussion. But, you know, one of the things that we don't do with students, I think, they make a big transition when they come from school to university. So make a big transition, and all of a sudden they're expected to learn in very different ways and in an unscaffolded way. Why aren't we actively, for example, why aren't lecturers and academics actually, as part of the lecture process, for example, introducing lectures, maybe in the first term, by actually introducing how to note-take, different types of note-taking, and then getting students to reflect on the note-taking process so that they can develop their own approach. So that's part of metacognition. In terms of a UDL design, that's what we really need to be thinking about. That essentially, you know, metacognition is about developing students' awareness, really, of themselves as learners. What does it mean to be a learner? What does it mean for me to be a learner? And how can I be an active learner and think about my learning? That's what metacognition is, really. We need to be developing curiosity in our learners. That's the word that we should be thinking about. Curiosity about how I learn and reflect on learning and can develop strategies. So at the moment, what we're seeing is we've got an apps generation now. Yeah, students are increasingly using apps. It's agile and they're every day. And inclusive teaching and learning actually needs to draw on students' use of apps. That's really important. We need to start encouraging them to bring and use apps within higher education. And that's where metacognition comes in, to encourage students to think about, well, I've got this struggle that I'm having with my studies. I need to develop a strategy, and what technology can be added onto that? So thinking of that as a process, as part of metacognition and what we're doing with students. I'm just going to introduce a student case study, and this student actually came from my studies. Very interestingly, once people got wind that I'm an assistive technology specialist, all sorts of students came and started speaking to me. Staff wanted to know more. So what I did was I actually started to work with a student one-on-one on developing an approach for them in terms of their learning, because there was no funding for any specialist equipment or software for the diploma. There's nothing available. So it was a challenge for me to work one-on-one with the student to develop an approach for their learning, really. So I'll just give you a quick overview of the student, and then I'm going to get you to have a very brief conversation about the strategies and apps that you might think, in terms of your own knowledge, that you might think would be useful for the student. So the student's dyslexic and dyspraxic, doing a counselling diploma, got large amounts of reading for weekly seminars. Got a lot of reflective journals that they have to do, termly essays. They've got to do lots of client case notes, and they're always on the go. They're always running from placement to work to college. And they don't make very good use of their in-between times. Really importantly, the student's strengths. So this was something that I really focus on with them. What's your strength? So verbal abilities, really good at identifying the big picture, enjoys reading and bringing the learning alive in seminars particularly. Kinesthetic learner, touch typer, likes organisation. As some of you have worked with dyslexic and dyspraxic students, these are quite common difficulties that the student was having with planning and structuring written work. Often gets in a jumble, fatigue while reading, struggles with note-taking, never really had an effective notes-taking strategy, just copious notes in a book that really they never made good use of. Proofreading was a difficulty. Stuff that they had already, equipment that they were using, they had an iPhone, an iPad, desktop PC, but they didn't have any more funds to spend on anything, really. So that was the challenge, was to come up with some strategies and integrate technology using what they had. So I just want you to take a couple of minutes now to talk to somebody next to you and think about what would be helpful, what kind of technology or apps that you're aware of that might be beneficial for this student, thinking about strategies that they need to work on. Okay, so yeah, if you want to take a couple of minutes. Okay, sounds like there's lots of discussion going on. So let's draw it back in and just share what people have come up with on the different tables. So let's just move around the tables really quickly, and if each table wants to just maybe mention one or two things, that'd be great.
Thank you.
We start over here. Yeah, this table.
Well, I'm just a big fan of Google. I'm a Googleite. So I particularly like some of the new features in Google Docs, like the voice typing tool that generates text from the voice, gives students lots of flexibility, you know, to generate ideas or complete paragraphs or just to transcribe notes they have for essays into documents. I'll put this over to Anne as well. She had great ideas too.
We were just saying that there's a lot of built-in accessibility features within the iPad and the iPhone, so why not use them as part of the strategy?
Great, yeah. Yeah, we want to move around the different tables and...
In our case, instead of a technology, we use a kind of a therapy program. In the psychology section that we have in the campus in Galicia.
Mm-hmm.
But however, in a level of technology, in a technology way, we don't have a current one right now.
Thank you.
Thank you. I suppose we just talked about maybe that every dyslexic student would have different requirements. So some may use like a read writer, where it would convert, it would read a PDF back to you, and you could watch it on the screen. And we talked about Grammarly, and we talked about plagiarism checks as well. That they're very useful, and also Google Scheduler and Google for organising your docs.
Great.
I think, is that it? Great. Thank you.
I don't know if they've already been mentioned, but we were thinking text help read and write, Evernote, Claro Read, Dragon Naturally Speaking, throwing kitchen sink at them, I think. Thank you.
Great.
Hi, I was just going to mention that in the college that I work at, we sort of working on something that was developed by the University of Minnesota. It's an assignment planner that the student. Do you know this?
No, but it sounds good.
It's really good. It basically, if you put the date of your assignment, the date that it's due, it'll email you 6 steps along the assignment journey and link into various things. Like the first one will be by Sunday you need to know how to, what you're being asked, and linking into researching in the library and other such things. It's at University of Minnesota assignment planner. Assignment planner.
Hello. I think you've all said everything we've said, but we were looking at demo versions of some of the software there, the free trial versions of the things that were mentioned in the table 2 behind, because you can get versions of that software to try things like Inspirations, Read and Write, Text Help, all of those. It's possible that the institution concerned may have various software on their system and the student may not be aware. So this student may not be able to have their own versions of these things, but the institution may have institutional access to the software. So the student may want to find those things out too.
Great. So we're already starting to think about different things we could potentially draw on. Just to add a bit more about the institution, actually, this institution, because it's a small private college, so it's actually got no facilities whatsoever, and also it's only recently developed a disability coordinator post, so that's useful to know about this. So it's very, it's really from the ground up around this, and the student had really no funds at all, really, in addition to paying for their fees. So that gives you a kind of idea of, so really when we're working with this student, it was really about problem solving free stuff, or pretty much very, very low cost stuff. So I'm going to zip through very quickly just some things. I've designed this PowerPoint, so when you get it, you can click on links, and it's basically going to give you all the stuff that you need. So just be aware of that. But this, I think this table over here said, there's accessibility built into pretty much every operating system now, especially Apple devices. There's accessibility built straight into them. Text-to-speech, voice recognition, voice control, vision. There's even color changing now on iPhone. So it's worth looking first of all at what's actually built into these devices, because there's huge amounts of accessibility built into devices. So in terms of this particular client, this particular student, there was a need to record client notes and also kind of come back to them at a later stage. So we worked with her to find something that would really work, where she could do things like doodle and take notes, and that would timestamps. We found a piece of software called Illuminate Audio Note, which is great because you can see she can come back to the recording and annotate, etc. And that's available on iOS and Android. It's a really excellent app. It's only £5 a year, and the great thing is that it could be linked with Dropbox so that she could move between the different devices. So that was really, a really important piece of software, really. And the great thing was to be able to actually work on the go as well in those in-between times. Someone mentioned Google here. So Google has got so much accessibility built into it now. Someone mentioned voice recognition into Google Docs. So that's actually built into Google Docs now. You've got voice recognition built straight in. And that was something she was using to dictate her work. But she was also able to use voice recognition that was also built into the phone to be able to reflect on client work after finishing. So that was a really important device. And the great thing about Google Docs is she could jump from one platform to the other. She'd finish on the computer and then carry on her phone. Yeah, so that she could just carry on with that process and make really good use of in-between times. And also Google Keep, you'll see up here, kind of a sticky note system for note-taking as well, for kind of tasks lists and things like that. A useful bit of information is Google Keep now integrates with Google Docs as well, so you can actually have your Keep notes up the side. So someone mentioned scanning text. So the student was actually getting lots and lots of PDFs, so scanned PDFs via Dropbox through the institution, but they were inaccessible. So we used a free piece of software called RoboBraille. I mean, you might have heard of it, but it's a website called RoboBraille, and basically she could put the PDF documents through RoboBraille and make accessible Word documents, which you could then annotate and also take notes from, put them into mind maps, and also Evernote Scannable for taking chapters from books and then putting them through. So these are all free pieces of software that she was able to use. So there was also the need to, there was this note-taking process which was just a scrappy notebook. And she wanted something where she could put everything together. So we worked through the idea of creating a mind map for the entire year, which she could have subtopics for every class that she was going to, attach the reading notes to that, and also the class notes. And then what happened with that mind map is it became basically a searchable archive. So when it came to writing essays, all she had to do was press Control and Find to search for a particular word, etc., to find some text that was related to the essay. So it became a really powerful note-taking tool, which I think often, mind mapping isn't necessarily used in that way. It's very dynamic use of that, and also for essay planning and writing as well. So we used a piece of software called iThoughts, which is probably the best piece of mind mapping software on iPhone and iPads. If you're using Android, then MindJet is very good. The great thing about iThoughts as well, it exports to Xmind, which is a free piece of desktop software. So essentially, that strategy was £8, which is, not bad, really. We spoke about voice recognition. So she was using voice recognition software both through Google Docs, which is free and built in, and also on the phone to be able to reflect and capture notes on the go. And text-to-speech we mentioned as well. So text-to-speech is also built into iOS devices, and she was able to use the built-in text-to-speech. And recently, the color change screen filter came in for iOS as well. Again, that's built into the accessibility features. She was able to put a screen filter on to help with the reading for fatigue. So these were all excellent things. So here's just the quick overview of everything that was used with that student. It really became a really integrated process, and it was very much a discussion between the two of us about, okay, what do you want? Let's try this out. Come back, reflect on the process. I mean, in that way, it was I was lucky because we were working on site, and what's come out of this is actually a package of tools, so a UDL package of tools which other students can use. So we've created a web page as part of this for other students to use. They're really accessible, pretty much low-cost assistive technology strategy that can be used for students. So there you go. That's your integrated app strategy. So you can, I really encourage you to go away and have a look and explore those tools and really get your students to think about how they can use technology to integrate with their learning. I just wanted to show you, just to finish, so we've got the DNA website, the resources page, which a lot of these apps and strategies are built in. So if you just go to dnamatters.co.uk/resources, you'll find the resources page, and you'll see it's ordered by tags, strategy tags, or assistive technology tags. All you need to do is actually click on particular tags, such as voice recognition, for example. You can scroll down and you'll find the different strategies and
but also with to discover how it works, because I can imagine a lot of tools, but he or she doesn't know how to begin on it, and just because you can start with one tool, but it's not good, so you have to go to another, and I can understand it's not so.
Yeah, I mean, this was a really unique process because I was working as a student alongside them in a durational way, and actually still working with them really. But you know, a lot of the time it would be a case of me, you know, I would only have snatches of time, but I would say, well, let's find a video that you can look at. Yeah, because actually, if you Google any piece of software now, you've got to find a video that shows you how to use it, and usually in the context of a strategy. So that would be my advice really, is actually that, you know, Google is our friend really. If you Google a piece of software, you're going to find some videos, and especially on our website, you'll find some great videos related to some of these software and strategies.
But I think just to add to that, what we find is when we support students in looking at assistive technology, sometimes we get, oh yeah, I've got assignments coming, I've not got time. But what we often find is by spending time thinking about the way we learn and then looking at the strategies, saves a lot of time going forward. So it's a little bit like those 10,000 hours that Katie was talking about earlier. If we put the time in, the actual outcome is enablement and is more confident, independent, lifelong learners. So spending that time makes a big difference going forward. I think that time needs to be integrated into universal design.
I mean, there's a case, isn't there, for actually having workshops or spaces for students to be able to actually share technology and what they're using as well. So that's another thing that we can be thinking about, you know, in terms of universal design as part of developing lectures, etc. Getting students to really think about strategies and technologies they're using and that they can share with each other. There's a real power in that process.
Have we got time for one more question? Well, I think I'll do that kind of. Any more questions? We got one in the corner.
It's actually just a comment. When we were introducing technology and assistive technology within a project for schools, we used the court thinking skills, the De Bono court, and it just gave the students, you know, simple strategies to how to use their thinking, you know, to how to start thinking. You know, the simple one was looking at giving them, it was called PMI. There was about 8 different tools, and it was asking them to look at the positive aspects of a topic, then the minus, and then the interesting. And there was different skills, as I say, that you could teach them how to actually kind of start their thinking.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.